Hi, Andrew. Thanks for doing this.
No problem. Good to be here, Leah.
All right. Well, let's start at the very beginning. Let's start with your beginning. In fact, you're an entrepreneur at heart. So tell us a little bit about how you ended up at Thin Air Labs.
Yeah, so thinking back on this story, I always like to start by saying I haven't had what you might quote as a real job in some time, or if ever. So I was working on my own business as I was working my way through school at Mount Royal University and their entrepreneurship program, and it was all very lean startup strategy focused. And as I was doing that, I was running my own business and kind of applying everything that I was learning in the classroom setting into a real business setting, and that was a great experience. But as I was thinking about what I wanted to do after school and after I graduated, I was looking for something a little bit more scalable. That company that I was running initially was a home servicing company, and it was great. It was a lot of fun, and built it up to a good size. But I was looking for something a little bit more, and that's when I got connected with the tech and startup ecosystem here in Calgary. It was about 7 or 8 years ago now, so really in its infancy in terms of kind of emerging as a place for the world's best entrepreneurs to come and build their businesses. But I jumped right into a couple community and ecosystem development type roles with different organizations like Startup Calgary and Innovate Calgary at the time, which then became Platform. And that was really where I got my kind of feet wet with the ecosystem. One thing led to another. And I did a bunch of other kind of odd jobs here and there and kept myself busy and kept a paycheck coming in through a series of contracts with different organizations to help them build up the ecosystem, and eventually got the itch myself and jumped into my own venture, my own startup. And it was a company that was working on technology to service the live entertainment space, specifically helping companies manage the distribution of digital tickets. And this was back in 2016, 2017, really as cryptocurrencies were starting to emerge. And what we now know as NFTs, non-fungible tokens, were kind of this really early stage idea of what some of the applications of blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies might be able to do. And we were building some really interesting technology in that space, and took that company into the Creative Destruction Lab here in Calgary, and met some amazing mentors and now friends through that process that helped us execute on our own business idea. And we raised money through that. We learned kind of the ins and outs of what it was like to build a venture-backed company. And as I was transitioning from that company into what I wanted to do next, I just reconnected with a bunch of people that helped me along the way. And one of those people in particular was James Lockery, who's at the time was just getting Thin Air Labs kind of off the ground. He had an idea with the other founding partners of what that could look like, and it was really focused around how do we help create hundreds of global scale companies right here based in Alberta. We kind of shared the view that we had the right type of entrepreneurial talent here that wanted to build amazing high growth companies. But they were missing a few pieces that made it easier or more advantageous to build a company in other more mature ecosystems like Toronto or Vancouver. And so this idea of what Thin Air was at the time was really a kind of ecosystem studio, as we call it right now, but we never really called it that at the time. We just had an idea of what that needed to look like to surround founders building these types of companies with all the resources they need to succeed. And that includes capital, of course, and so that's why we always knew that a venture capital arm of the business was required in order to do this, what we wanted to do at scale. But we also knew that that entrepreneurs needed very specific types of support for this type of venture. And it was really focused on how do you validate an idea, take it to market, and grow it efficiently. And there's really a kind of a process and a strategy around how you go about doing that that's different than other types of businesses that are a little bit more linear growth trajectory or path businesses. And so that's really how I ended up at Thin Air. I reached out, connected with some folks in my network that helped me in my entrepreneurial journey along the way, and said, this sounds like a lot of fun. How can I help? And one thing led to another, and a small contract just to kind of help get some of the foundational pieces in place for Thin Air turned into the work that I'm doing now within the organization, which is, again, all centered around helping entrepreneurs de-risk their ventures and ideas, raise the capital they need to take the next step of their journey, and execute and stay focused on executing what's most important in at the time. And so that's really a brief history of my background, a little bit of everything, a lot of community building and development work, and then a lot of entrepreneurial experience myself building my own venture, and then just trying to find ways to help pass that knowledge on to the next generation of entrepreneurs here in Alberta.
Yeah. You have so much founder empathy, I think, for that very reason. You've been there, you've done it, you understand the struggles and what keeps you up at night and all that kind of business. Which leads us to the Funding Catalyst service. So this was an idea you had. Tell us what happened there.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I realized as I was building my first venture, also based in Calgary, was that there's a lot of funding opportunities and funding programs available through grants and vouchers and wage subsidies and forgivable debt and these kind of things. And these are funded by various groups, including government, but also other types of funding, like philanthropic or otherwise, that help support various aspects of building these types of ventures. But in my own experience, it was really hard to navigate what was out there and when the right time to focus in and actually submit applications to actually capture that. There's a lot of strategy work that goes into when's the right opportunity, or when's the right time to go after certain opportunities versus others, and how does that fit into your overall fundraising strategy? So as a first-time founder myself, I was trying to figure all of this out at the same time myself. For my venture, and we made a lot of mistakes along the way, but ultimately we were successful with capturing some of this funding from different organizations through different programs. But looking back on it, especially as I was thinking about how we can support other entrepreneurs going through or at the similar early stages of their venture, this was one that really stuck out as something that was really challenging for entrepreneurs to manage and to juggle alongside all of the other things they have to do with building this type of business. And so it was, kind of an obvious value proposition that we could put in front of founders that I think was really relatable for a lot of founders in those stages of their venture. But it was also really challenging to find a way and a business model that worked on our end, but also created, as high of impact and value as possible for the founders that we were working with or partnered with on these types of engagements. So in some cases, it was, obviously led by my own experience, having gone through the process of trying to, figure out how to raise money for my venture, how to leverage that to tap into other sources of funding that was available for companies based in our region. So it was really about how do we design a service that takes all of the pain points out of that, or as many as possible away from the founders, so that they could stay focused on building their venture. And I always thought about, looking back on my previous company, that if it was an important initiative or activity for us to do. It was something that our shareholders were asking for. Hey, can you find ways to leverage this money to get more buying power out of? But it was always something that took way more time and effort than I thought it would. And then by the time you're going down that path, you kind of have to kind of see it through. And there's just other much more impactful things that I could have been spending my time on as I was building my own venture. And I thought, I think actually having conversed and just being a big part of the community and ecosystem of founders here, I knew that other founders struggled with this type of thing too. So then the question was, well, how do we design a service that really allows us to align around the risk involved in putting so much time and effort into, let's say, a specific funding application, but also helps the companies that we're working with and partnered with on these engagements navigate those through and get the benefit of them without having to put the amount of time and effort and kind of thinking work into making it happen. So that's really how it came to be. And then the rest is really just iteration on how we can offer this in a unique way that fits the unique needs of founders building high growth ventures, which again are different than a traditional maybe brick and mortar type store. They have different needs and they have different things that are important to de-risk early on. And so it's really about, could we design a service that takes as much of this off the founder's plate as possible, keeps them focused on building their company, while we act as really as an extension of their team to help take advantage of the opportunities that exist, but they just might not have capacity or the wherewithal or know how to go after the right programs at the right time to support their growth.
Fair enough. Sounds like a plan. I bet you they're going to love this. We know this already. So tell me what it looks like when a venture actually engages with you. Like, walk me through that process.
Yeah, so one of the fun things about the venture world is that every company is very different, right? And they come to us at different stages of their development, but they're also targeting completely different markets and different product offerings that they're building and everything like that. So the first thing that we do is just try to get to know the founders, the people behind these businesses, and what their vision is for what they're trying to build. And that's where we start, just getting to know and building a relationship around what they're trying to do. And that's not a part of the paid engagement. That's just how we kind of operate as a team at Thin Air, where we're just genuinely curious about what founders are trying to do, what they're trying to build, and how we can best support them. And so oftentimes they'll come to us and we'll start building a relationship. And there might be other areas that we can support them, offer perspective in, or just help them navigate at first. And then oftentimes as we get to know each other and continue building that relationship, there comes a time where we can offer very specific services that help them navigate some of the things that they're trying to do, including going after non-dilutive capital to fund the growth of their venture. So typically we start with a couple kind of discovery sessions, we'll call them, but really it's just getting to know each other and trying to understand what the founder's vision and aspiration for their business is. And then the second stage of that is, now that we have a better idea of short and long-term needs of this company and this team, how do we design an engagement package that fits with their business and fits with their time capacity and their ability to collaborate with us to do that? And that often looks at like a few different ways, but we typically engage. We'll do this on either an hourly basis, where a company might just need a little bit of support on an application they're already working on, or a retainer basis, where they want us to continue chipping away and looking at different opportunities and kind of applying for them behind the scenes without much while they continue to stay focused on building their business. We can be an extension and basically be their funding catalyst or non-dilutive capital team for hire. Or we can do this very with a much more defined scope of work, where we have a very clear idea of the program that they might be going after, or some things that they need to do or clean up in order to be investment ready. And we can kind of design a scoped service package that is a fixed fee that we execute collaboratively with those ventures as well. So again, it all starts with developing a deep understanding of what this founder wants to do, how they see their company evolving and growing over the coming couple either months or years, and trying to find creative ways to design service packages that fit with their needs. And again, focus on taking away a lot of the pain points involved with this type of work. And that's a pretty typical engagement. Oftentimes at the end of that, we're successful helping them unlock different forms of capital, and then we target other programs that are a better fit for the stage that we help them get to. So it really is a combination of strategy and execution in trying to find the right opportunities for funding for the right ventures to help solve very specific business needs. And then helping them actually build the capacity and execute on putting together the applications themselves.
That's so exciting. And as we know, it's been going really quite well. We've been doing this for several months now. So can you tell us how it's been going over?
Yeah, for sure. So it's been a crazy year. I think back on this time last year, early January of 2021, and this was really an idea. Like, we had one venture that we had offered this service for, but it was very much just, we knew that they were going after a certain funding program but they needed some help actually executing on that, both from a capacity perspective, but also strategically. How does this project scope that we're asking for funding from this program fit into our overall business strategy here? So that's where it started. And then we said, there's got to be more companies or founders that might have similar needs, that might have a need for this service as well. And so we kind of slowly opened it up and reached out to other ventures that we were either invested in or otherwise engaged with. And we asked them if they needed help with this type of service. And sure enough, a number of them did. And fast forward over the last 9 months, we've now worked with, I can't remember exact numbers, but close to 30 different companies. We've helped them unlock just under $3 million in non-dilutive capital. I think it's like 2.9 now and counting. And and a lot of those engagements that we executed early on have led to follow-on customers and long-term customers that we continue to do this work for. So overall, it's been a great experience. We for us and for the founders, of course, it's been a learning process for us as well. And in some cases, it's been working with amazing entrepreneurs that understand that we were building kind of an early stage startup in its own right within the under the Thin Air Labs umbrella. So it was great to work with them to help us iron out how should this work, how should this fit in with the way that you want to do business, and kind of co-building with some of the early customers that we brought on to execute with. And now we're in a growth stage of our own business. We have more desire or demand for our services than we can support, and so we're building and growing out our own team to support the dozens of companies that approach us and are looking for this type of support. So that's kind of where we're at. But overall, over the last year, I'd say it was a successful year. We reached a break-even point with our own business line, which allows us to have the ability to grow and reinvest back into the growth of this as well. And also think about how this fits into the other services offered within Thin Air, and also our capital team, which is actively raising capital to deploy into these types, this stage of company as well.
Maybe you can talk a little bit about that. I mean, we talk about what's next. I mean, it's these repeat engagements, it's getting new customers, it's building your team, but then it's also like connecting these same founders with our other service, Product Traction, as well. And you find that happens quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, that's when I say a lot of what we do is strategy, and then a lot of what we do is execution. So it's kind of a 50-50 split. A lot of the strategy work is trying to understand so even if we execute on an application that that brings in a chunk of money for this company, how are they going to use that most effectively? How are they going to optimize the use of that funding? And oftentimes in the early stages of venture building, there's a million things that a founder could do on any given day. It's really about focusing in on what are the highest impact activities that you can do to move the business forward. And in the early stages, it's not usually about optimizing the business model for profit. It's usually about optimizing the business to show traction and to show that there is a need in the market for what you're trying to do, and then to tie that back to your narrative and your pitch when you're looking to raise money to continue growing and accelerate your growth. And so a lot of what we do is, and this is really baked into the relationship building that we do up front. It's, where are you at with your business right now? What's point A? Where do you want to be in 6 months or 12 months or however long the timeline is? And that's point B. And how do we help you get there? And it's often a combination of things. It's not just, this is your silver bullet, and if you engage with us on this, with this service offering, it's going to solve all your problems. It's really like a series of steps that you have to execute over time. And so a lot of what we do early on is just develop and work with the founders to come up with a strategy, an execution strategy for let's say the next 6 to 12 months, and then helping them match up with the right services or the right people on our team to help them execute on some of those very specific barriers that might be in front of them that they have to overcome in order to move the business forward. So that's the great thing about working with a group like Thin Air, where it's a very holistic kind of approach to it, where we try to understand as much as we can about the business and some of the challenges and barriers that they're facing right now, and then focus and narrow in on very specific ways we can help them overcome some of those challenges. What's right in front of you that's either a perceived or actual barrier for your growth, and how do we design a service offering around just executing on that one very specific part of your business, and do that with affordance to build capacity for the team that we're working with, so that we don't create a dependency on this type of work. This is really working with a team that understands how ventures work, understands the messy middle of building these types of companies, and can help the founding team that we're partnered with solve and execute against some of these challenges or barriers that they're facing, but also build capacity within their organization so that they can continue to do that themselves moving forward.
The path to independence on their own. You got it. So tell me what's next then for the Funding Catalyst service. What do you want to do over the next little while?
Yeah, I think, so again, we're at a point now where we have enough demand for this service that we just have to build out and scale our own team. I think right now we're at a point where I can see our team size doubling over the next 9 months, 6 to 9 months or so, in order to meet up, to match that demand. I think that there's so much opportunity to help more companies with this type of work, that we just want to match the opportunity with our ability to actually execute on that. And that's a combination of, like any business that we work with. So this is drinking our own medicine as well. Being very specific about how we grow the team, how we use technology to help make our processes more efficient, and the experience for founders that we work with better. And then what type of talent and people do we actually hire into these roles? The work that we do is unique. It's very different. There's not a lot of like other similar roles to that people have experience in that we can recruit and onboard. So it's really about finding the right kind of combination of technical writing skills and the ability to articulate really complex business problems and solutions down to a level that is easy to understand and digest for various audiences, but also have the founder empathy that we talked about, the experience building these types of ventures, to understand that there is this messy middle, and there's a lot going on in when companies are at this stage of their own growth and development, and having the ability to work with founders to help them execute, which is not always an easy thing to do, and just requires the type of experience that most of us on Thin Air have in terms of building these types of ventures, understanding that there's often really complex things going on behind the scenes that it's hard to even create visibility for a founding team around, for their own team, let alone a partner outside of the organization to be able to come in. So it's really about how do we find the right people to bring onto the team. But I think it's likely going to be like a doubling of our team size over the 9 months. So we're at 4 right now. I think that there's probably going to be 7 or 8 over the next 6 to 9 months that we bring on to execute. With that, I think that we also probably, we're actually in the process of expanding our services outside of our own backyard. So right now we've been primarily focused on Alberta-based ventures. We have done some work for companies outside of the province in BC and Ontario. But I think that that's going to be, the challenges that exist here for Alberta-based entrepreneurs trying to find, access, and match, and then actually apply for this type of funding is no different than what companies go through in other places across Canada and North America. At the end of the day, it's really about trying to find capital to help you build your business, and what form that capital takes is there's different things to think about. But at the end of the day, we see our service line as a service line that has the ability to service companies across North America and even the world. And so we have big ambitions for what we're trying to build here. But what's next? Grow, scale, meet the demand that we're seeing in the market for this type of service.
Sounds very exciting. Okay, so if founders are listening to this, best way to get in touch with you to access this amazing service? Yeah,
so I think there's kind of 2 ways that I can think about that. It's always good to just hear directly from founders, so feel free to reach out directly to anyone on the team, and we're pretty quick to figure out who to put you in touch with the team, regardless of who you talk to first. But if you're looking to learn more information about our service lines, I would recommend going to our website, checking out our impact service page, and Funding Catalyst specifically, if that's what you're interested in learning more about. And you can read a little bit more about how we work and the different ways that we can connect founders into our service offerings. Again, they're designed to be flexible and agile and meet the changing needs of entrepreneurs and companies that we're working with as the company is finding its own way. But you can read a little bit more about what that looks like, some testimonials and some examples of different groups that we've worked with, and then there's a sign-up form there that you can just give us a little bit more information about your business and what stage you're at with it, what you're struggling with or looking for help with, and someone will get back to you within 24 hours to touch base and to set up a call to learn a little bit more. Call or coffee, depending on external situation. But we always love to connect with founders building, we call them crazy ideas, but high growth ventures here. So it often starts with a quick kind of discovery call to learn a little bit more over coffee and figure out the best way to approach helping a venture. Again, these are not off-the-shelf solutions or service offerings that we put together. It's really based on the needs of the founder at any given time. And so we always recommend just reaching out directly through our website or through any of us individually on LinkedIn or otherwise. We're always keen to take a first call.
Sounds great, Andrew. Thanks so much for mapping this all out for us.
Happy to. Thanks, Leah.